They go, yeah.
They'll switch to Netflix. There's too many entertainment options. So I was sitting there like the first time it happened, what can I do? And I looked over at my backpacks of the gear that runs on Speedify. You paid for a year of it. You can use it on any computer or device. So I just pulled out my one of several hotspots I have, hooked it up, cranked up Speedify, and it has never been a problem since.
We used the Speedify software at a command line level, so it's not running a whole UI which is starting to drain resources. It's really very, very base level, and the really clever people at the BBC got it all working, and we're now presenting whole programs every single day of the year have been presented using this technology. All our weather reports from our weather presenter are done on them.
If I look back at my original lives, they are awful. They're terrible. But we all start somewhere and we all get better. And every time you go live and every time you get on camera, you're going to get a little bit more comfortable.
You saw part
Really?
of it? Cool.
Nice. All right, we are famous. You want to say hi to everybody? Now you're on the video. So wave. That's the camera right there. Nice. All right. We're going back to look at this guy's house. It has a lot of white lights.
There he is. Hey, Christian.
Fine.
Tell you light on the deck so you can see when it's how it's live.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so these lights
do have RGB mixing, so if you want to do each color, you can mix them independently. Within the app, there are a couple features, and I'll just go show you this.
See power. There we go.
Woo!
Oh my God, it's beautiful.
Dallas is showing how to get really dirty in the
is just building budget aesthetic gaming PCs, and I have my studio here now, so we've graduated away from the basement of my house and whatnot.
Also, I would say streaming kept me from going completely insane when I was in that hotel room for 2 weeks when I first got to Australia.
So raising awareness is really going to help break that stigma. We definitely have a stigma in our society where it's, not okay for folks to be open about their medical conditions. It's kind of seen as shameful.
All of us have these amazing cameras, Apple, Samsung, Google.
5G is just far more variable than 4G.
We have customers come in all the time who say, oh, I watched this stream and I came in from out of town and I knew we had to stop here.
We build custom PCs for a lot of content creators, gamers, you name it, businesses, colleges, esports.
We treat people that are experiencing anxiety, depression, eating disorders, addiction, PTSD, and trauma.
The first 2 years of live streaming was actually just myself. I was kind of acting as a community manager.
I used to actually be solely mobile, so I used to teach people how to edit using KineMaster, which is just a mobile app. Really, really cool app.
But I love the process of both. I love the editing process, the scripting process and things like that of recorded videos, but nothing for me also beats the buzz that you get from pressing the go live button.
Welcome to Speedify Live. I'm your host, Alex Gizis, and today we have a very special guest, Craig Grossman from Arts and Crafts Holding. How are you doing, Craig?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Alex?
I'm good.
Good.
So I thought you could show us a little bit about what you're doing. So what do you call this neighborhood?
Yeah.
That's one thing that's confused me. This neighborhood, it's not the Spring Garden neighborhood, even though it's on Spring Garden.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
what is it called?
Yeah, so I guess a lot of people have different thoughts on what it's called. I mean, look, this is an area of Philadelphia that's been here for, hundreds of years. It's been called anything from the Callowhill District. It's been called, an extension of Northern Liberties. We lightly refer to it as the Spring Arts neighborhood, just because it's a bit of a commercial district that we've been trying to sort of lay out some almost like architectural plans to see a neighborhood of like-minded creative folks come into these buildings, these big, beautiful former industrial buildings that had been sitting empty and had been deteriorating for the last several decades, like breathing new life into them with these types of creative folks. So there was a residential developer on a project that was called, I think it was called Spring Arts Lofts. So we just sort of tacked onto that and figured, look, if people start referring to that, the neighborhood as Spring Arts, that'd be pretty cool if we could help shine a light on the neighborhood with, a name that resonated. So, but to answer your question, there's a few different names that are running out there. We like to refer to it as Spring Arts.
Cool. I guess the obvious thing that maybe we haven't said is we're in Philadelphia.
We are.
I assume that's obvious, but I guess it's actually not when live streaming on the internet. So, yeah, all right. What should we do? I think we should probably walk around and
we can walk and talk, and I can give you a little sense of it. I think it's actually interesting that you mentioned that we're in Philadelphia, because I think when people think of Philadelphia, they think of the central business district, tall buildings.
Or South Philly.
Right. So I was going to say, so there's so there's South Philly with the stereotypical South Philly resident, and then there's the there are the stadiums and the arenas, and where you get a cheesesteak. But then there's the central business district, which has all the large buildings and lots of people living and working down there. But over the last couple years, the neighborhoods that are sort of these secondary or tertiary spots of Philadelphia have become pretty hot. And pretty cool. People want to live and work in these neighborhoods. So, you've heard more about Fishtown and Northern Liberties, and maybe Old Cities had a little bit of a resurgence. You can talk about Fairmount and North Philly and University City. This pocket that we're in, when you walk around out here, which we will, you won't see a building taller than maybe 7 stories. You'll see lots of land, open space in between the buildings. You'll see, over your left shoulder, Alex, you'll see this former Reading Railroad line, which is now, the beginnings of a public space, public park with lots of trees and bushes and butterflies and people walking around, walking their dogs and things of that nature. So there's a lot of open space up here, and it's almost created a bit of a clean slate to almost do whatever somebody wants with it, because like I said, this pocket had sort of fallen on tough times, buildings deteriorating, businesses not really doing much within these buildings. So we just saw it as an opportunity to sort of breathe new life into the buildings, reimagine what they could be. So when you look at a lobby like this, we did a lot of deconstruction. We tried to bring a lot of art into the spaces.
I like the lights.
Thank you. Try to add interesting finishes like cool light fixtures and wallpaper, and how about a funky little welcome mat that you're standing on right now, which you can sort of focus on. So bring color and texture and flavor and interesting small businesses. And together, maybe you can create with these kindred spirits and like-minded folks an interesting community, almost like the intersection of arts and culture and makers and doers and innovators. So we've tried to do that, and hopefully we've begun to see some of the residual effects of that. And then what you'll also see is we've tried to activate the ground floors of these spaces. So most of the ground floors of these spaces are 15 to 20 feet up off of the ground because they were loading docks and there were industrial types of users in here. But now you'll see almost like today's makers, which we've tried to bring in here. So you'll see there's a half a dozen breweries here. There are some restaurants. We've got a barbecue restaurant. We've got a Mexican Chinese sort of fusion restaurant called La Chinesca, which we'll walk around. There's a couple music venues like Union Transfer and Franklin Music Hall. So there's like an interesting sort of combination of food and beverage and makers and music and things of that nature to help activate the ground floor. And it just makes the neighborhood more interesting. People want to work here. Ultimately, people want to live here. You'll see that there's a couple thousand apartments that are under construction along the Spring Garden corridor. So the neighborhood's now starting to sort of really surface, and people are recognizing that there's something cool going on here. And you're going to begin to sort of see that as we walk around.
That's awesome. So we're live, by the way. We're totally live. So if you guys, wherever you're watching this video, if you post comments underneath, I'll see them on this iPhone, and I can ask Craig. So if you have questions, either for Craig or about Philadelphia, whatever, just post them. Actually, let me take 1 second and geek out about technology and explain how we're doing this. So we're streaming from my iPhone, going to StreamYard, actually, and it's running my app Speedify. So it's using both the AT&T cellular that's built into the iPhone, and it's joining this iPhone's hotspot so that it can use its Verizon account. We're using Restream, sorry. So I'm using two cellular connections at the same time, so hopefully we can go in and out of buildings and stuff, and everything will work fine, and you should have nice video the whole time. Well, it's just a little technical detail.
Cool. Yeah. Should we walk and talk?
Yeah, let's walk and talk.
Okay. So we'll walk out just behind, this is sort of like a back entrance. Let me help you get out over here. To 990 Spring Garden, where we were just hanging out in the lobby. So you can see this is like a traditional parking lot. We tried to jazz things up a little bit with taking these steps, and we're trying to curate different types of exterior public art. So we had an artist by the name of Brad Carney, who's in another building of ours, which I'll take you into, called 915 Spring Garden, and you can see he painted this and jazzed it up and made it look fun and fresh. And we keep sort of, switching things up like that. You can see over to the left here, this is another building, 448 North 10th Street, which has become a pretty cool spot with lots of little businesses in there, also more like the creative class folks. You can see the different murals that are up there. There's actually a ground floor mural by a local artist, Joe Burrichow. And then there's the Spring Arts mural up there, which is actually another local artist that goes by the name of Mecro, who's become pretty hot over the last couple years. The ground floor of this building over here is going to have a pretty cool restaurant called Little Sister, and this is a local operator by the name of Michael Pasquarello, who's been in the neighborhood for, 15, 16 years. He's got a great restaurant that we probably all know over on 13th Street called Cafe Lift. And he recently opened up a pretty cool spot called La Chinesca, which we'll walk by. It's
I haven't been there yet.
Oh, it's really great. It's this, I guess the origin of the food came from a small town just south of the border of California and Mexico. I want to say it was a group of Chinese immigrants that settled there, and you can imagine that there were inspiration from Mexican cuisine sort of fused together with Chinese cuisine, and I don't know what you call that, if anything, but that's the inspiration of the menu.
Nice.
So we'll walk by that as well, which is pretty cool.
Philly, there's a ton of murals and artwork and public art.
Yeah.
Is there some did the city force this?
No, but I think there's the genesis of this is really the Mural Arts program, and Jane Golden, who spearheads that, So, if like you said, if you have blank walls, can you do something more with that? Can art help ignite change out there? Is it more interesting, like when you've got a sort of dark and dreary location, whether it's a building or a neighborhood, can you breathe new life into that neighborhood by adding some color and interesting design? So we've always
Obviously
been...
you can.
Exactly. We've always believed in that as art and public art being a real important piece to help ignite change in a neighborhood. And we've done a lot of collaboration with mural art. So that's what you're seeing some around here with murals.
Scotty Two Cat says, Craig, love all the public art and murals that you're incorporating into your properties.
Cool. Well, thank you, Scotty. I appreciate that. All right. Let's keep walking.
Yeah. We really are seeing your comments, folks. Post them. Put the art in heart. Nice.
This is a Shepherd Ferry piece here that they implemented to inspire people to get out and vote.
Nice. Yeah,
I
like this post-industrial, whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. This is actually a pretty cool. This building, 448 North 10th Street, has some really great history. This was formerly a bicycle manufacturing company called Haverford Bicycle.
Okay.
And they were manufacturing turn of the century bicycles, right? And they were one of the first bike companies to actually experiment by putting a motor on a bicycle. And they had a bike back in the day that was, I think it was called the Black Beauty, which was pretty popular. Eventually, their business did deteriorate and they went out, but it's a piece of history. You'll see as we walk around the building, there's still some ghost signs for what used to be here. Yeah. And, we tried
the building we're in says something about a belt manufacturer on the side.
Exactly. That's 601 Spring Garden. 990 Spring Garden actually was, they used to manufacture like boric acid and other pharmaceuticals in that building. So there really was like true making going on here, turn of the century. Nice. So, we've tried to pay homage to that by keeping those ghost signs and doing some funky things inside the buildings that refers to what used to happen here, but then taking today's makers, groups like Connectify and other branding groups and other folks that are making things and bringing them into the building today. And, it's a way to sort of breathe new life into these buildings.
Nice. I think you're doing a great job.
Well, thanks.
So this is the Reading abandoned train tracks?
It is, right. So this is like the former Reading Railroad elevated line. This used to actually go over Vine Street into what today is Reading Terminal Market.
Right.
So, that obviously, I think this line stopped running back in maybe the 70s it was. And this has just been deteriorating. But what's been kind of cool about it is you can see, if you sort of peek up there, you can see lots of bushes and trees and flowers. There have been local folks here that have actually been sort of taking care of it, even though Reading has not done anything to take care of it. So you'll see people walking their dogs. You'll see people planting little things. You'll see bees and butterflies and things of that nature. It's become like a really cool little outdoor garden. And of course, the first phase of what we know as the rail park was finally implemented. That's a couple blocks to the west over here, which really runs from Broad and Noble Street up to 12th and Callowhill. That was land that was controlled by SEPTA, if I'm not mistaken. And the city of Philadelphia and SEPTA were able to work something out where that pocket was revitalized, and that's turned into a true
that's a really
elevated
nice, it's a really nice
space.
little park. I was up there the other day.
It is. And what should happen, the second phase of that should go from 12th and Callowhill and should pass by us here right up to the 900 block of Spring Garden Street. But this is land that's owned by Reading International, and for what reason it's hard for me to say, I can't figure out, but they have not been it seems like they haven't been excited or interested in really working with the city to make that happen. So unfortunately, we're all sitting here waiting to see if something happens, when it'll happen, when they'll be cooperative, wanting to do something that would, be complementary and accretive to the first phase.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be nice. I was looking at the plans for the park. And the ultimate plans have it taking over a tunnel up by the art museum?
Well, and I think that's what they've referred to.
I can't quite picture where that tunnel is.
As the third phase of it. So if you were actually over by like 21st and Callowhill, you can actually see some new construction. There's a Whole Foods over there. There's some former like tunnel space over there that would be part of this. I think that would be considered the third or the fourth phase of it. It just hasn't happened yet, obviously, and
yeah,
it's all part of a big dream, right? And
that's right.
Hopefully it'll come to fruition, but obviously not yet.
I hope so. So yes, Scotty, this whole thing we're just filming on 2 iPhones. No other equipment involved. Huh? Which iPhone? Oh, the 12 Pro is the one we're using for the camera, and something older for the hotspot.
As we walk around, you can see over to the left over here.
That looks like a nice little park.
Exactly. So it's almost like a pocket park that was, 6 years ago, it was a small parking lot. We converted it into a pocket park. The Horticultural Society did something with it. We've done some things with other groups to help activate it. Right now, Love City, which is a local brewery, a startup, a husband and wife team that leased one of our spaces over here to the right, called Love City Brewing. They took it over a little over a month ago, and it's called Love City Gardens, and they're going to use it over the next 4, 5, 6 months.
So it's going to be a beer garden?
Yeah.
Get a beer and hang out there?
You can get a beer and hang out there. It's
nice.
Open for business in the afternoons and evenings.
The beer gardens in Philly are just such a great addition.
Yeah.
It just showed up in the last couple of years, right?
Yeah, maybe a little bit before that. But yeah, look, if you have empty space, whether it's a parking lot or a little pocket park, try to think about highest and best use. Parking is not just that. So maybe if you can activate it and do something a little bit more exciting to help lure residents, keep them here, business workers, that's a way to do that. So, that's what's been going on over here, which is pretty cool.
More murals.
More
It's
murals.
Philly.
This is actually the one of the sides to Love City. I don't know if you've ever been in there. Have you ever had a beer in there?
I have not.
I don't know if their door is open. It usually is, but maybe you can peek in there and see their tasting room and where they also do their brewing.
Oh, this is a really hip place. I got to come back here. Yards is right across from us, so I just keep popping in there.
But
there's so many more breweries.
There are, and we have 3 in our neighborhood. One being Love City, one being Triple Bottom, which we'll see in a few minutes, and then Roy Pitts is a third, which is in 990 Spring Garden.
Nice.
So it's just been it's been a good way to help activate some of these former industrial spaces.
Uh-huh.
And then you get to see and feel the grit of the neighborhood, the old cobblestone streets, more public art, more commercial loft spaces. Then there's also residential spaces as well. So it's a funky neighborhood that's taking shape, but I like to really think of it as gritty and evolving.
Yeah.
As we get to this corner over here, just over this Pico transformer station is where the first phase of the rail park is. And then, of course, what's kind of nice about this neighborhood is that it really is a stone's throw from the central business district. It's just contiguous to the north to Chinatown, and of course, if you wanted to walk to City Hall, you could probably get there in 15 minutes on foot.
Yeah. We can't quite see City Hall from here, can we?
No, not at this
I guess that building's
elevation,
in the
but
way.
it's close.
So the 2 tall buildings are Comcast over there.
Mm-hmm.
So, nice.
Yeah. So we I guess incorporated about 7 years ago and started on this path of trying to acquire and control as much real estate as we could up here to really make a change and in what was going on over here, or maybe what wasn't going on over here. And I guess, it took us the better part of 2 years to really put that plan into place, where we acquired, close to 36 properties, close to 1.5 million square feet. And we've taken buildings like the ones we've been walking by and adaptively reused them. So those were buildings that had just deteriorated, fallen on tough times. Prior ownership hadn't really done much with them, but we saw the opportunity to really reimagine what they could be with new tenancies, funk them up a little bit, bring in some public art, bring in new businesses, and those buildings have really changed over the last couple of years.
So here's a question coming in from the audience,
Yeah,
from
shoot.
Steer. As you're coming up to 11th Street, any idea when the 23 Germantown trolley will be reinstated instead of the bus?
I have no idea. I did, I've heard about...
He says the track only requires minimal intervention to fix it back up.
By the
I
way,
don't know.
if you and
Guess
I
we
would
have trained
say
people in the audiences.
You and I would say minimal intervention, but if you were to sit down with somebody from SEPTA, they would give you reasons why it's not so minimum in terms of intervention. There's always other things that pop up, whether it's funding, ADA compliancy, ridership, all that stuff factors into it. So I don't know the answer to that question, but I think it would be a really nice touch to bring that back, like we've seen on Girard Avenue. I would agree, but something tells me it's probably a much more costly intervention than you and I would think.
Yeah. You would think the trolleys would be good. They're electric, they're all these things, but...
Yeah. I don't know. You know how things, sometimes, there's like, you scratch your head as to why things have changed, and then you stop thinking about how maybe efficient and good some of those old school concepts were.
Yeah. Oh, we're at La Chasse.
Right. So here we are at the corner of 11th and Spring Garden, and behind us, which was a Jiffy Lube spot back in the day, has been adaptively reused into a really cool restaurant and bar called La Cinesca.
Oh, yeah, of course. The giant windows were garage doors, weren't they?
Exactly.
Right.
So it's become a really cool hip spot in the neighborhood. Michael Pasquarella, who I mentioned before, is the Cafe Lift operator. He's doing this here. It's become a super big success. It's right next to Union Transfer, where you can see that beautiful mural on the west wall there. So there's 300 shows a year, give or take, at this venue, holding 1,500 people or so. So it's nice to have food and beverage, a place
and they're totally back open and doing
totally
shows
back
and...
open, back in business. Like I said, now it's like a couple shows a week now. So that's been really great to see the neighborhood, reactivated from what they do on a regular basis now.
Nice.
Of course, here on Spring Garden Street, which has always been thought of as almost like this vehicular throughway connecting.
Yeah. It's always been how I get to somewhere else.
Of course, right. And it's funny because you'll drive up and down Spring Garden Street and you won't really look to see what's to your left and what's to your right. That was what created the opportunity for us, that it just had become a pocket that had been looked over and passed over for decades. But now that there's an interesting commercial vibe with people like you guys working here, and restaurants and bars and breweries and venues open for business and attracting thousands of people a week, well, now there's a reason to maybe live here. So you're starting to see new construction take place here. There's 500 apartments coming to the corner of Broad and Spring Garden. There's 50 apartments coming to the corner of 12th and Spring Garden. There's 350 apartments coming to the 500 block of Spring Garden Street. There's an Amazon grocer in the works. There's a giant supermarket in the works. There's more stuff which is popping up now. And if you think about the topography of Philadelphia, and there's Northern Liberties and Fishtown and Old City and Chinatown and Fairmount, this was almost like a hole in the donut. But now, as there's activity taking place along the Spring Garden corridor, it starts to knit together
Fill it all
those
together.
neighborhoods and
Yep.
fill in the whole.
Nice.
So, there's probably 2,500 apartments that are scheduled to be built between 2nd Street and Broad Street over the next few years. So that's exciting to know that this is really on people's maps. Other developers have sort of jumped in and realized the opportunity, and you fill it in, and it's all good for Philadelphia in the short and long term.
Right. And there's subway stops both at Broad and then over at like 2nd, right? So,
Yeah, so I mean, when you think about public transportation, besides the fact that there are a number of bus lines, SEPTA lines that run north, south, east, west, you're absolutely right. And you know that you can walk from 2nd to Broad Street in a pretty short period of time. So knowing that you've got these two north-south major, between the L and the Broad Street line, that allows people to live in Kensington and Fishtown and North Philly and get their way down to Spring Arts, or of course also all the way into Market East and down to the stadium. So those are really nicely strategically located spots for people that want to live and work here. All right. And we're back.
Stick that in.
This way?
Yeah.
You missed it.
Yep.
All right.
Well, here we are walking by fairly well-known Union Transfer.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool venue with all their live music.
Nope,
I guess for
I'm
people
lame.
that,
I don't know anybody.
Yeah, I know. I don't know a lot of them either. But for people that are like longtime Philadelphians, they know this spot as the former Spaghetti Warehouse restaurant.
Yeah.
I've heard that mentioned. I'm not from here, and I didn't get down here until post Spaghetti Warehouse, but apparently it was a thing.
I never ate there, but
You heard
certainly I remember the huge signs. No, the problem had nothing to do with Speedify. Just simply the phone overheated. It is 91 degrees. We're standing in the sun. It was just a thermal overheat error.
There you go. This is another great spot that opened up a little over a year ago called Russo Music. And, I don't know if you can peek in there, but really great retail concept for...
Oh, they're selling guitars and stuff.
Guitars and other instruments. It was a family business that was out of Asbury Park. They're still there. Anyway, really beautiful store, like beautifully curated. And there's a nice synergy with being next to Union Transfer. So anytime bands come in, the band members are constantly coming over here. And it's like, you don't find any old school like music shops. You can get lessons here. You can buy your guitars, other instruments. Anyway, I just think it's a really cool addition to the hood.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you play any musical instruments yourself?
I don't. I much to the chagrin of my parents, they forced the piano on me. And I didn't stick with it, and
yeah, I play some piano, I play some guitar, both very badly.
Yeah,
the audience will never see it. All right, Scotty says Spaghetti Warehouse was legit.
Yeah.
All right, I guess he's been here a while.
So we can cross over this way.
Let's try cross without getting run over.
So you get to see like the idiosyncrasies of the neighborhood, whether they're making like bedposts or front doors out of metal.
That's crazy stuff.
I know.
All the different style gates and stuff welded together.
You get to see the front of 990 Spring Garden, and you get to see this is where...
So that's where we started.
We did start there, although we started in the rear of the building, but here you can see the front facing Spring Garden Street. So Lucky Well is a great barbecue restaurant and bar. Then you have Roy Pitts, which is a brewery. They actually started in Chambersburg and opened up their second brew pub here in Philly. Great guys, great beer, creative office space above. This is a little spot over here at 931 Spring Garden with the liquor license orange poster here. There's a bar / lounge that'll be opening up here in the fall, which will be a nice addition.
Somebody, the Keggy is asking, where are the Rocky steps? Where's the Rocky statue? It is exactly 2 miles straight west, right?
Yes.
Right, it's right at the end of this. Spring Garden basically ends at the art museum, and right there's the Rocky statue and the steps. So
put on your shorts and your boxing shoes and take a jog over there, run up the steps, and then come back here for a beer.
That's right.
Speaking of beer, Throw a little shout out here to Triple Bottom Brewing, which is the third of the 4 breweries that are all located within a couple blocks of here. This is a pretty cool spot. Started by a woman who is also a B Corp. I want to say she was the first.
So making the world a better place in some way?
Exactly. First B Corp brewery, I think, in Pennsylvania. So that's pretty cool.
So I have been here, and this is a great place.
Yeah. So they're doing great things, and I'm going to see if we can pop into 915 Spring Garden Street on our right here. Also, lots of creative class offices. There's actually 40 artist studios in here as well. Let's see if we can pop in. There we go.
Thank you. All right.
This must be the place.
Oh, look at that elevator.
Yeah, so this is pretty cool. This is an old...
Is it now a work of art, or does it
It's a
still
work
work?
of art. It's out of commission. But you can see we did not want to remove it. In turn, we tried to turn it into a bit of a sculpture by putting some interesting lighting in there and just sort of shining a light on it.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't see too many of these anymore.
No, it's beautiful.
And here you see a little lobby of ours. You see some art that we've tried to implement, make it a little bit more colorful. A nod to, so this building was once a stop along the Reading Railroad. So you'll see a nod to railroad memorabilia. We've got a little sign up there.
So is it like a passenger station or just industrial?
It was a station, if I'm not mistaken. It was where luggage was sort of taken off of here and maybe it passed through here. So whether it was luggage and some passengers, but there used to be a station up on what's now like the second floor of this building. That was recently demolished because it became, it was deteriorating, it became like a challenging spot for life and safety. And so Elle and I forced Reading, who owned it, to sort of take it down. I like to show off some of the interesting memorabilia from Reading that we've collected and sort of showcased here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Share certificate. 100 shares.
Yeah, I mean, Reading is still a publicly traded company, but they're not in the railroad business.
They always make me think of the game Monopoly. Of course,
Exactly.
where you buy them, right? Must have been pretty big to earn a square on the Monopoly board.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Map of Philly or Pennsylvania. All right.
And here you get to see the tanks of Triple Bottom. I believe actually they're...
That's so cool. The breweries are actually brewing right here.
Yeah, they're actually brewing a beer right now that they're donating a good chunk of the proceeds. I can't remember if it's to Planned Parenthood, but it's to really, disseminate our, the letdown that we have in overturning Roe v. Wade. So they're certainly politically active in making sure that their message is heard, and I think a lot of us, most of us, if not all of us, share in those sentiments here.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So this is 915 Spring Garden Street. You can see we like to just activate, whether it's stairwells or corridors or bathrooms or elevators, just funk them up a little bit, make them more interesting.
Those touches, they make a big difference.
The details, right? Yeah.
All right.
There is, right? So I don't know if you could tell, but this one's green. And that's how you can see the green gumballs. When we were in 990 Spring Garden across the street, you might have noticed there were yellow gumballs in there.
Ah.
Yeah, so, there's a little...
Does 601 have a color?
601 doesn't really have a color just because it's a little bit of a smaller building, but for argument's sake, we'll say it's pink. All right. Anyway, and then, you get to see, like, some of the more idiosyncrasies of the neighborhood. So, you know, here's
pistol range.
Here's a gun range, right in the middle of the neighborhood. De Bruno Brothers took over a big industrial space a half a block up to the north, where they have their whole operation set up there. So there's a lot of activity.
Is it like a store you can go into, or
it's not a store? It's where they do all of their distribution. Their corporate offices are there. I think they'll probably end up having. They may have a retail component. There may be an outdoor market component. They're just sort of getting started and cleaning things up, and they were focused really on Q4 distribution, and you know, we'll see where they go with that building, but it's nice to have them in the neighborhood.
All right, that's nice. Oh yeah, so another person asking, yeah, it is just iPhone 12 Max we're shooting with.
Okay.
It is on a gimbal. Actually, you can see your own reflection there. So it's stabilized. So when her hand shakes, the camera doesn't shake, and that makes a big difference. As much as anything to do with the software, right? Making sure the camera doesn't shake.
Make sure it doesn't shake, and make sure it doesn't overheat.
Yeah, well, if anyone figures out how to keep it from overheating, tell me.
Why hasn't somebody figured that one out by now?
Yeah. Because in Northern California, it doesn't get hot enough to make the phone overheat.
Maybe, okay.
It also doesn't get cold enough that they ever have to wear gloves. Otherwise, it would get fixed. Nice.
Yeah, so the outdoor terrace to triple bottom. A little across the street, a little outdoor beer garden area next to Roy Pitts.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there's
nice.
Good stuff going on.
We're at 3:50.
Okay.
I think maybe we should wrap it up here.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Greg. This is awesome.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I love this neighborhood. I love what you're doing with it.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, you pointed out a couple things that I hadn't seen yet, so this is really cool, and it seems like a couple people out there were happy to see it too. So
yeah, well, we couldn't do this, you know, without people like you and Connectify doing your thing and allowing me to help sort of shine a light and spread, you know, the message here and what's happening is always appreciated.
Awesome. All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Alex.
you, sir.
Yep. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
See you online.